Hi, welcome to Writers in Focus. I'm your host, James Taylor, and today I'm delighted to have as my guest Mr. Peter Brown. May I call you Peter?
Yes.
Welcome to Atlanta. Welcome back to Atlanta and the Atlanta Fulton Public Library. By way of introduction, you've studied with the infamous Harry Crews at the University of Florida. You are a legal investigator with the U.S. Department of Justice. We'll talk about that later. You have a novel here called Ruthie Black, which I read and absolutely love. It's the winner of the O. Henry Festival Prize. It was a finalist in the Faulkner Society Creative Writing Competition. My first question is, how does a legal investigator with the feds come to write a novel about a no-account, feisty, 25-year-old blonde widow living in Ackworth, Georgia in 1958? How's that?
Well, I'm from the 50s, and I'm from North Atlanta.
Okay,
so,
okay.
All of that's a little bit of me that comes from my distant past. And
that was a big question. I know. I just want to get you started.
And it's a mystery. So the investigator part of me loves a mystery. Loves to take pieces and put them together and come up with a whole that is, you know, intriguing.
I was going to ask you who is Ruthie, so let's continue this. The Nazarene Orphanage, if I recall? Okay.
Yeah, Church of the Nazarene Orphanage,
yeah.
which I know it doesn't exist, but it's similar to any old orphanage you'd find. The Georgia Home for the Orphans that used to be out south of town. And that's where she grew up, and her she meets Buddy, her future husband, and they elope. And so...
Well, what is this? I can't resist, but this morning I searched my closet for an Arrow shirt, because I'll never wear an Arrow shirt with the same feeling after reading your book. Buddy is an Arrow shirt salesman. And your evocation of him in Locust Grove, Georgia, driving that old Rambler, if I recall. Mm-hmm. And after his death, people come up to Ruthie Black and say, you know, he was the best Arrow shirt salesman I've ever seen. I can see him doing this. Yeah. Where did that come from?
Well, that's
well done, well done.
Thank you very much. A lot of the aspects of this story came from my life.
Okay.
And
your father was an Arrow shirt salesman? No.
My father was an Arrow shirt salesman.
No, I just made that up.
No, it's true.
Okay.
It's true. He
Truth is stranger than
both
fiction.
Norris shirts and Arrow. And
I have an arrow in my back. I mean, go ahead.
Yeah, well, he was a traveling salesman, and
next thing you're going to tell me your brother's in the audience. I can't believe this.
Yeah, my father was very successful shirt salesman, but in those days, and probably still, a shirt salesman spends all of his time on the road.
Unbelievable.
Drives a whole district, and as I recall,
in Georgia, right?
Yeah, the whole north of Georgia. So he was constantly on the road, and you know, it left my mom at home with her sons, who were babies.
I had no idea, Peter, about this. This is phenomenal.
Yeah, and the tragic part is that my father also died very tragically when my brother and I were babies.
Unbelievable.
And it put our mom in the position that Ruthie was in, kind of desperate. A woman who's a stay-at-home mom, who's a homemaker, and you know, suddenly you've got Social Security, and that's it.
Unbelievable.
2 kids, and it was a very tragic situation, and one of those, it put her in the situation of feeling like, you know, she was abandoned. Not intentionally, of course, but he was dead. He died.
Yeah.
You know, so he didn't intend to abandon her, but she was abandoned, and she had the same feelings as anybody would who was left holding the bag.
And Ruthie Black, if my reading is correct, does not want to be in Ackworth. She'll use anything or anybody to get out, and that's the machine that drives the novel. I mean, Buddy dies in a fiery wreck, and one of your greatest sentences is when Ruthie Black tells her son Freddie, "Daddy's gone, the kingdom come," and Freddie says, "Well, let's go there and get him." I mean, that's nice writing. That's nice writing.
And she says, "Kingdom come ain't no place to drive to."
That's right. That's right. So I told you earlier, Peter, that on the internet and reviews that Ruthie Black is a feisty character. I don't know if feisty is the right word. She's a survivor. She'll do anything. And she's 25 years old, and even though she has pockmarked skin, I think she's gorgeous. Am I reading that right?
Yes, this is a pretty good, I'd say that's a pretty good likeness. She had enough going for her in terms of sexuality. She had the figure, she had the blonde hair, she had what it took to get out of the orphanage. And that's why the matrons at the orphanage told her that they were afraid she was going to end up like the other ones serving cocktails at the nightclubs.
Now, I told you before the interview, I want to get people out there to read this book. It's one of the finest pieces of short fiction, a novelette. Only rarely do I meet authors who write with such unpretentious publishers and yet have such wonderful words in this book. This is a book that deserves to be read by a much wider audience. One big last question for you, because it just dawned on me that I haven't asked you about the actual writing of this book. The book ends on, to me, a very spiritual note, and without giving too much away, the book ends with the 10-year-old Freddie finding salvation in his father's ashes. That's all I'm going to say. That's the last sentence of the book. Did you have that as an author, as a novelist? Did you have that in mind when you wrote this? Like, did you, like Faulkner, did you sketch it out, you know, outlines here, and someone's going to do this, or did it just come to you?
No.
Okay.
No, it didn't. It did not come from an outline. It didn't. It was one of those sections of the book that grew as a result of the character development leading toward that particular conclusion. I try not to outline at all because I prefer to allow the development of the character to dictate. And what I mean is that if I decide that a character should be sad, then in a particular situation, because of the events that are happening in that situation, then that dictates the actions of that character. The character's not going to jump for joy if they're sad.
I'm going to jump for joy on that point because I've read this book and I want the audience to go to your local library, your local bookstore, and pick up a copy of Peter Brown's Ruthie Black. I seldom get a treat in reading, but this was a true gem of a book, a real treat. I enjoyed it so much, and I really enjoyed meeting you.